So hi guys, question is, buying the newest camera out, does that make you a better photographer? With loads more megapixels, faster shooting speeds, greater dynamic range, that all costs tons of money, like lots of money, and will it actually make you a better photographer? Are you going to get better photos just because the camera is more capable? The thing is, we know, with things like the iPhone, Steve Jobs, he created basically the world's best phone as such, but is it? There's always going to be the haters, the lovers, the fanboys or whatever, who are going to say this is better than that and that's better than that, and it's exactly the same with the camera market. Canon and Nikon have been the best for decades, and they've always had in the background Konica Minolta, Pentax, Olympus, etc, etc. And the thing is, with the fanboys as such, they will buy everything. They will buy the newest camera, the newest lenses out because they can. The super specs of the newest camera body or the newest lens that's come out, they will buy it just because. It's got nothing to do with how they use it. They probably don't even use it. It's probably just there. They're the people with all the gear, no idea. That's that group of people. But they are the ones funding. A lot of people are funding the R&D for Sony, Canon, Nikon, etc. to create better cameras, and if we don't buy new ones, they won't create new ones. So it is a vicious circle, but the question really does, it does come down to, do you really need to buy the newest camera out just to get better photos? And it does make you think, is there anything wrong with my camera I use right now, or cameras, depending on how many you've got? And if Sony, I'm a Sony user, you may know that. If Sony released an A7R Mark IV tomorrow, I wouldn't buy it. Not straight out, anyway. I would probably wait a good couple of years until the A7R III has done its workload, and then I would upgrade. It's all about, will the camera make me enough money to obviously earn enough money to progress? You do have to stay on top of technology to a degree, just because that's what people expect of you, in a professional manner. But that said, there is nothing wrong with the cameras previous to, say for example, the A7R III, the A7R II. Amazing camera. Yes, it had a few faults, but what doesn't? Every single piece of manufactured equipment, doesn't matter what it is, isn't perfect. Having a new camera that has got new features on it, for example, I don't know, faster processing, and it will do more frames per second, things like that, a better quality EVF or whatever, if you're looking at mirrorless, will it save me time, in the long run? Well, I've always been, say not taught, but I've always been the person in my mind that if I do as much as I can in camera to get it almost as I want it, if it's possible, sometimes I don't even edit the photo at all because it doesn't need processing or anything, so you're happy with it and that's it. But a lot of people do rely, due to lack of knowledge and maybe lack of equipment, if they can't afford a wider angle lens or something like that, have to stitch the shots together or whatever, they are relying on time and processing time. So spending time in Photoshop is obviously slowing you down. Obviously the less editing and less time spent on the computer, the more money you can earn, because you're going to be out shooting more. So in that respect, if the camera is more capable, if it's faster, if it is better quality and it's got more dynamic range, things like that, yes, in a professional manner, yes, it's worth having the newer camera. But do you buy? The other question is, do you buy the newest camera right now, or do you wait 6 months, or do you wait a year? Are you, if you're using the camera now and you know the camera inside out, that's the difference. If you buy the newest camera, and you learn how to use that piece of equipment until that moment of time. You don't really have to think about changing settings, finding things in the menu. You just know where everything is, even with your eyes closed. That is when you've kind of conquered that piece of equipment. I know so many people that don't use their camera enough that they can't remember where certain things are in the menus, how to do this, how to do that, and that's where they're the people who don't need to buy another camera. That camera is absolutely brilliant for them. They just need to use it more, and it's time. It's creating time to actually get out with the camera and use it regularly. If you don't use it regularly, you will forget how it works, how certain things function on it, etc., etc. And that's where the mentality of the mobile phone side of things comes in. I think a lot of people think having the newest phone is obviously cool. They've got to have it because it's a new toy. They just want to find out what the new features are and if it can do anything better than the previous phone. And it's the same with the cameras. We can't, we're never going to get away from that. But if you're a real passionate person and you love photography, say as much as I do or many others, it's all about learning the craft as such. It's all about learning everything about that camera that you're using right now, the techniques that how to take those photos that you want to take without having to rely on too much editing. Using lighting, using reflectors, using people to help you. It could be anything depending on what you're doing. If you're doing landscape photography, using filters, using your tripod, using everything that can actually assist you in creating a better photo. And it's not necessarily the camera, it's everything else around it, that once you kind of understand everything, it's all about just learning. And once you've learnt enough and that camera can't give you any more, that is when it's time to think about buying a better one. And a couple of years ago I bought, this is completely out of in a non-professional manner. I wanted a couple of years ago I wanted a spare camera that I could pick up any time of the day, take with me everywhere I went, just because it's cool to have a camera and you could capture something that you may have missed. So I bought an RX100, one of the first ones from Sony. I bought the Sony because I know the menu systems and I know how it works, and we all know that all the cameras out there from a couple of £100 upwards are good. Doesn't matter what they are, what make they are, it's how you use it. It doesn't matter what make it is, they've all got their strengths and weaknesses. So you get to learn the weaknesses, you get to learn the strengths, and you work around the weaknesses. And that's why using the camera regularly will help you get around the weaknesses. What I found with this camera was I found it restrictive, and obviously using a full frame, professional level camera, obviously I knew it wasn't that, but I was struggling to get the photos I wanted to try and capture. And it was a case of I would actually make the effort to take the rest of the big camera with me and take a few lenses, and I'd actually carry them around with me instead. So I sold the RX100. Since then they've become a lot better. So you're looking at the RX100 Mark 6 and the Mark 5, both amazing cameras, and they've got a lot more features and a lot more control. Notice that it's the control part of things which I was struggling with. And so Sony bought out the RX10 series. The first few levels I kind of ignored, but when they released the RX10 Mark IV, the spec on that is, the usability of it is incredible. And I've spent the last it's almost a year now since I've got it, and I was lucky enough to be one of the first people in the country in the UK to get one. So I got to use it a week or two before anybody else, and I've fallen in love with it. It's absolutely amazing what it can do. Yes, it is far from perfect. Yes, it could do with better noise control and things like that above a certain level of ISO. But other than that, it is crazy. What it can do and what it captures is, unbelievable. And if they bring a Mark V out, which I'm sure they will at some point, it will have to be mega good to be above that level of usability, you know, enough step ahead to actually make you want to buy it, because the RX10 it's not perfect, but it's not far off. There's a few little things that you have to work around. So one is you can't zoom in and out when you're focusing. So if you've got your finger on the focus button and you're at 600mm, if something's flying towards you, you can't back out at the same time as you're focusing. So you have to let off, back out enough, and then refocus. Luckily, the workaround is the autofocus on the RX10 Mark IV is so fast that you very rarely miss a shot anyway. Other than that, the battery life obviously could do with a larger battery, and the buffer could do with writing to a card faster. Other than that, it is absolutely amazing to use. And now I've learnt basically everything about the camera and utilising all the different functions it can give me. It allows me to go out for the day and just take pictures wherever, you know. If it's in a smallish bag, so I'm only carrying a small bag, it only weighs a kilo, so it allows me to keep using the camera as much as possible. The A7R3 that I use for work and some pleasure generally doesn't get used as much as that, because you have to carry around all the lenses I've got, you know, lighting, all that sort of stuff to get, you know, but that's the difference, you know. I'm utilising the RX10 Mark IV as an everyday tool, I suppose, and it's creating and capturing the photos that I've actually would miss because I haven't got to swap lenses. That's another benefit, and with the 24 to 600mm range, it's awesome. And the functionality and the usability of the camera has allowed me to capture more things where I'd normally miss it, because I'd have a wide angle lens on it or a zoom lens, and last second I'd need to quickly swap lenses, and on the A7R3, and I would miss the shot. So it's all about learning how to utilise your equipment properly and efficiently. Like I say, nothing is perfect, but I've decided now that my perfect lineup so far is the RX10 Mark IV and the A7R3, obviously with lenses and everything. It's allowed me to get the most out of my photography at the moment. So I'm really pleased with how far I've come in the last few years, it is a case of me using the camera as much as I can just to stay on top of things, because I know for a fact if I stop for a week or two, or even more, one, I go crazy because I'm obsessed. But the other side of things is you start to forget. You become rusty. You forget things that I see it all the time, that people aren't picking their cameras up. They love it, but they haven't got the time, or they can't make the time at the moment to utilise their cameras, so they forget things, and you do become rusty. Also have to think about what kind of photographer you are. I'm an all-rounder. I'm not a specific photographer. I do a bit of everything. And quite a few years ago, a guy I know basically told me that I should just do one thing, and that was that. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I feel like I want to do everything. I know you can't do everything, especially professionally, because obviously time and equipment costs. But I love to do, landscape photography, macro, wildlife, action, sports, things like that. There's so much range and scope there that my equipment setup now is kind of perfect for a bit of everything. And you'll probably notice as we've been going through the listening to this and seeing the photos on the screen that these shots I've put up are all mine. I've actually left them non-zooming in or anything like this time, so they're literally as is, straight onto the screen, so you can actually see each picture in full. Hence the black lines, horizontally or vertically, depending on how they were cropped and stuff. And I'll tell you right now, some shots are from 1999 up to 2000, and 18. So a good mixture of different cameras, everything from film that obviously been scanned and put into a digital format so I can use them, from the Sony f828, which was a kind of bridge camera, 8 megapixel, through to the Konica Minolta 7D, into the Sony A700, the A900, the A99, the Sony A7R, the Sony A6300, the Sony A7R2, and the Sony A7R3, and the RX10 Mark IV. And that's all the cameras I've owned to point, apart from going back to my Pentax ME Super and the Nikon, couple of cameras Nikon there back in the back in the SLR times. But it just shows you, even though technology has moved along, I was still capturing photos from a long time ago, and I actually look back now and I think some of the photos I took back then, I thought, actually, how did I even do that? You know, sometimes it was sheer luck. You know, manual focus, autofocus. The autofocus systems in the last 10 years have got to become so fast that actually, you know, is photography, or you were just relying on a piece of technology to actually capture something for you? You know, so actually it's quite nice to slow everything down and go back to a manual focus lens, or switching to manual. Obviously the shots you've seen so far, they're just there to obviously look at, but I'm going to speak about each one now as we go through, with the metadata and everything, and I can see, well, most of them actually, and sort of tell you what camera they were taken with, and you'll kind of be able to see that actually going from an 8 megapixel or 6 megapixel sensor, you know, a very small sensor, to an APS-C, into the full frame side of things, and then obviously the 1-inch sensor on the RX10 Mark IV, in reality they're all amazing. The quality of the images that were coming out of them, even 2004 I think the f828 was, you know, it's still really, really good. So people are obsessed with the most up-to-date technology, but when you look back a bit, you know, they're still great. You know, yeah, the colours aren't quite perfect, or, you know, they've got better and better and better, yeah, absolutely. But in the real terms of things, how often, you know, do you print bigger than A4 or A3 or A2? You know, yes, I have done quite a few prints that are billboard size, and, you know, other things recently, that are still very large, which obviously having 42 megapixels plus is a benefit. Also it helps with editing, going in really close, making your edits really, really tidy, also cropping ability and things like that. So there are benefits, yes, but in real terms, for the average person taking photos as an everyday hobby, or even semi-professionally, you don't need the newest camera out. Yes, it can make your life a little bit more efficient, yes, it can help you get the photos a bit easier, but also it can actually hinder you as well, because if you don't know how to use the camera properly, you're going to struggle. So it's all about learning the techniques and learning the camera inside and out, setting up better, and utilising the lenses properly, utilising the apertures correctly. I see too many photographers out there shooting wide open all the time. Yes, I shoot wide open for outside portraits, but generally you work out your distance. I see too many photos where people's eyes are in focus, but their nose is mega soft, or their chin is mega soft, or their ears are out of focus. Sometimes it looks good, but a lot of the time all you need to do is leave the camera wide open but move back. So as you move back, your depth increases on your subject, so then their nose is in focus, their ears are in focus, so actually their face looks a lot more appealing in shot than it does, same as macro. A macro lens, yes, generally can do f2.8, but 95% of the time you're so close to something that, you know, if you're shooting macro 1:1, you're going to be at f16 at least, and you may even have to stack some images, you know, using Photoshop with different depths to get more in focus. So there's a lot of techniques out there where utilising your lenses properly can make you a better photographer instantly, compared to relying on a new camera that will actually make you a worse photographer if you're relying on something to hopefully sort the pictures out for you, which it won't. So with these two otters, they were taken with the A99 and the 50-500 Sigma f6.3. Not the perfect lens in the world, but so usable. Same with the Crocodile here, same camera, same lens. As you can see, Dinner was behind the croc, and he was too busy sleeping to even notice that Dinner had arrived. But as you can see, it's still usable. Old lens, worked really well. Same here. You know, yes, the depth of field behind, the bokeh behind, you know, it wasn't going to be as good as a 500mm f2.8, but then, you know, it's not as usable. You can't carry one of them around easily around the zoo. You know, this is Chatham Docklands or Dockyard, and this was taken with a 12-24mm with the A99, and you know, brilliant. You know, the light coming through the windows and everything, really cool. And then, you know, it's all about timing as well. You know, if the sun was behind the clouds, or, you know, later in the day, the sun wouldn't be coming through the window like that. You know, and it's all about time. It's just being there at the right place at the right time. Another shot here, 24-70 Sigma, A99 again, the submarine there in the distance. Short f2.8, relatively dark inside. Pretty good shot. Probably could do with levelling up. 24-70 again, f2.8, short f2.8, and just to, you know, the shots work. We are in a time now where there's no such thing as a bad camera. You know, for the money, anything above a couple of £100, you know, you're looking at some amazing quality images, and anybody can pretty much afford that. You know, so if you want to get into photography, it's not expensive. Yes, you can go to extremes. This is an old film shot, so this is actually from my Nikon. Well, I can't remember which camera that was from, but that's an old shot. It would have been a 35mm lens. This is from the RX10 Mark IV. Links flying past. You know, straight out of the camera. You know, it works. You know, it's same here. This is at Lyd Airport, and that wasn't actually the RX10 Mark IV. That was actually the A7R2 with the 50-500 Sigma lens on with an adapter. So my friend Molly here modelling. This was with the A7R2 and the 85mm Batis lens. Brilliant. You know, everything we can do if the composure's correct. Friend's jet here flying around, doing a sort of special flight around for me to get photos. Back with the 50-500 again. Worked really well, especially having the plane fly straight at me to get the shots. You can see a bit of vignetting there, but you're going to get that, you know, unless you're spending tons and tons of money. But then I couldn't back in and out, you know, if you had a fixed you know, prime plane coming straight at me, 500mm, you know, it worked. That's the A7R2. The only downside with the A7R2 was the buffer filled up pretty quick and I had to wait to get another burst in, but didn't miss a shot. Got the shots I wanted, got the shots they wanted. Noise control and everything is as is. I think the problem is as well, we pixel peep, we zoom in so much now because we can, unlike the old days, you know, where the so we can see too far into the image. This shot here was actually a friend Flick doing some dance. She was doing some leaps and stuff on Canberra Sands. This was taken with a 12-24 Sigma and the A7R2 with an adapter on. This was taken in complete darkness at Bodiam Castle. The A7R2 with a wireless flash just firing off there behind Count Dracula. This was the what was it? It was the A6300 with the 70-200mm Sigma f2.8 with an adapter on. Nice and sharp. This shot here for a lorry company, and it is a merged image. Probably not perfect, but it's still quite cool. and that was done with the 12-24. This shot here was taken in 2004, I think, and that was from the Sony f828. And the real difference you can see here is the clouds and the sky don't quite look as real as they do in today's cameras. Another shot back to the castle one. A couple of wireless flashes going off there to obviously light the castle and obviously the models there. Great fun that evening. It was chucking down rain. This is an early morning. This is like 5:30 a.m. We were going to Goodwood Festival of Speed, getting there really early, and we stopped at Arundel Castle because the mist was just rolling in and the sunrise was just coming up, so it lit the castle. That was taken with the A7R2. This shot here was taken with the Konica Minolta 7D with the 70-200 Sigma lens. Worked really well, and it took quite a few shots to get that actually, because obviously I didn't have, it was shot with an air rifle, and I didn't have a trigger or anything like that. It was down to reaction times. So it's all about practice, a little bit of luck, and just keep at it. This shot here, a friend Jem, wireless flash in the stable, and she stood in there in a dress, and it was lit from studio lighting this side, flash inside. Boom, works really well. There's the other another shot from the Konica Minolta 7D. Basically old Christmas non-alcoholic beers we were shooting because no one drank them. So that was quite funny. Right, so as you can see, not a perfect shot, but still quite like it. Beach out, sorry, the tide's out, so the sand's exposed, plus all the sort of slimy rocks and everything. Back to the lorries, another shot there. That was 24-70 Sigma f2.8, shot at f8 to get as much in focus as possible. It was a moody day. Another one of the canned shots. This is how the shots panned out. That we were trying to get one. So the first shot you saw earlier where the can was actually exploding, that's what we were trying to get. But it just shows you how many times we had to, I think we went through 12 cans to get the one shot. Aerial shot this time, but actually taken from I don't know what they call it, like a skylift, so it takes you up. So I was getting a shot from above. I did have a drone then, but it was too windy to take it up. And this is down at the New Forest, so 24-70 on the A7R this time. Early morning, loved the misty sort ofness and the sun rays coming through. It doesn't matter what camera you're using. This is taken from about a mile away, and I have cropped in on this. This was the A99 with the 50-500 on, and I love this shot because all the lines, the following lines and almost triangles and things like that, and it just worked. This was taken with the A7R again, down at the New Forest, and that was 24-70 Sigma. Lovely early morning dew on the spiderweb, and perfect lighting in the golden hour. A couple of dogs, did a little dog photo shoot for someone. This was actually the A900. Back when I had the A900, and that was taken with the 50-500, the actual first one, not the OS version. Back with the A7R down in the New Forest, early morning still. 24-70, wide angle at 2.8. As you can see, there's a few bits and pieces where you probably think, but it just shows you. A900, even though the focus system was pretty slow, I nailed that shot, and that was the first go. Straight onto the dog. I'm running at flat out speed coming at me with 50-500. Off the top of the Cookmere Valley, and paragliders flying around, and that was the 50-500. This shot here I don't actually know without looking what it was, but some kind of spraying machine, but black and white. It was a bit of a moody, rubbish day. Back to the dogs. This was quite cool, jumping over. And that was back to the 70-200 mil lens, Sigma lens. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what you're using. I've got a range. There's a range of cameras I've used in this video that the range of photos, that have all been taken with about 10 different cameras, ranging from 6 megapixels up to 43, and back into film. This was an old film shot. This was a Konica Minolta 7D, early morning, going out on a friend's fishing boat, 6 megapixels, and that was printed, and it was lovely. It was perfect. You know, this shot here of him coming back in, that was actually on the f8.28. So as you can see, the dynamic range wasn't quite amazing. You know, wasn't quite as good. A little bit pixely. It was shooting to struggle. This shot here, Beachy Head, quite an eerie shot really, where people top themselves, unfortunately, jump off. But you can see the crosses there, people remembering things, and the lighthouse. That's straight out of camera, one flash gun firing, slightly long exposure. This shot here, this boat washed up onto the beach, and it was there for a good few weeks after smashing up all the groins and everything. 2 really powerful tugs there with the chains just about to pull it off. That's quite a cool photo actually. But they, you know, this is Brooklands Motor Museum, just off the M25. Concorde. That was taken with the 12-24. As you can see, quite heavily distorted, but still quite cool. So up on the BT Tower with the Olympics, so I was shooting with Simon up there. We had a wander around the BT Tower, shooting a few celebs, famous people, whatever, and a few Olympic gold medalists, etc., etc., and people talking about stuff. That was for the radio. This shot here, I've actually lost the original file, unfortunately, but this was cool. This helicopter was just playing around, but that was taken with a film camera. I did have it scanned, obviously, onto CD, but I've lost it now. So there's Kelly Holmes there, but that was on top of BT Tower. Unfortunately, we had a limited time to get shots, but there you go. So this is an A6300, 16-35mm lens. I actually had to rent that one because I dropped my other camera, the A99 in fact, and the shutter had failed, so it spewed itself out the front shutter curtain. So there was a way for repair, and I had to hire a camera there and that 2 days before, because we had to go and do this job. This is that boat that got washed up onto the beach. It's all about timing. I just got a phone call early morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. So I was the first person down there with a camera, with my friend down there, the fisherman. Like these cooling towers now, they're not there. They're not there anymore. That's taken with film. Really love that shot, and I wish we could have got closer, but there was a big river in between. There's no way of getting around to it. This shot here, macro lens, A7R2, with a flash gun, little earwig there. Obviously hiding from the rain because it was actually raining, so he had made his little hood there. Richard Bella's a magician, so we did some promo shots with him. This is a shot with the A99, and a prime lens. I think it was, what was it? It was the 85mm f1.4. This shot here of the 100 years of Girl Guides, we did a few shots for them, one being the sparkler shot with 100 on. So that was taken, I think we did a couple of attempts of that. Hastings, down at the fishing village, sunset, you know, and that was winter time. No, yeah, it must have been winter time because of where the sun is. And then out near Canberra, the most ridiculous storm I've experienced in many years, and lightning took. I think I took something like 40 images over about an hour, and every single shot had lightning in. So if you know what you're doing whilst taking lightning, especially on quite an active storm, you can get them quite easily. This is the Manav Star again, with the lifeboat from Dungeness. Came in to have a look. It's quite a cool shot. I sold a few of those. This is a shot when I was in America. I don't even know how they managed this, but a wet road, raining heavily, and the car ended up on its roof. No other cars involved. Bit random. Just shows you how things can happen. Very old film shot from late 1990s, 1997, 98, maybe even slightly earlier. And mountain biker jumping. This shot here, 7D with 50-500, the first 50-500, and he was actually that close. The only thing I've cropped is the top and the bottom of the image, not any closer. And he was actually that close in shot, so really pleased that I actually managed to stay with that. Another shot here, Richard, and we just did a 1 minute exposure roughly. Cars coming up and down the road, and just as a promo thing for his magical show. This is Rye, one of the Rye Lakes, or the Rye Harbour Lakes. A perfect sunset. It was amazing. The water was calm, the sky was nothing in it, and I just remember sitting there thinking, wow, the reflections. But this was shot with the f828, so very limited on quality back then. This shot here, we were trying to, for the friend who was a magician, we were trying to get psychological colours and words and things into a photo that he could sort of put into a show. Here we go, Simon shooting, and a few flashes and everything. And so we were doing the promo shots in the dark, and this old derelict buildings and stuff. And this is one of the shots I took, which I really like. It really gives a classic feel, a classic sort of 1940s, 50s, I guess, feel to everything. The way this guy looked was really, really cool, and the smoking and everything. Canvas Sands, Konica Ultra 7D again, and 24 70mm lens, Sigma. Looks pretty cool. Looks good printed. My sister and brother-in-law have got one on the wall, and that worked quite well. Another aerial shot from the skylift, or whatever you want to call it, of the lorries, which was quite cool. The sun finally came out on that shot. Yeah, so that worked quite well. The next shots, these were taken the A7R2. Some action shots in a gym, kickboxing girl. She was rather amazing actually to photograph. Really, really good in front of the camera and action. One of my best friends, Rosie, managed to get her in front of the camera after many years, and we went to Sheffield Park. So I was taken with a 70-200 f2.8. I shot at f2.8 from Sigma. Here's some more of the food photos we were setting up. So this is all set up for different ingredients for a certain recipe for a chef I know who's amazing. For his sort of online thing. Dungeness, looking right towards Hastings. There's a pet level there in the distance, and then the Fairlight Hills. That's 24-70 f2.8 Sigma lens on the A7R with an adapter. This shot here is a 50-500, but I've cropped it along to make it a sorry, it was actually a pano, so there's about 5 shots there, 50-500 zoomed in. You can see France there from Dover. It's just some images now, just a leak that's been sliced, but you can see the depth is quite good. So I was shooting at f10 with some lighting. Absolutely cool there. Dancing shot here is actually 4 to 5 images all merged and then edited together. Just an experiment really, just to see how it looked on Canvas Sands. Just a little bit of play there. This shot here, back into the digital world from what I took previously on a film camera, and that was taken with the 24-70 at 70mm at f8, an old boat there. This shot here is actually in Sandwich in Kent, and I really like this shot. It kind of reminds me of France. It's kind of a French willow tree kind of thing going on there, it just, I don't know, had a little bit of charm about it. But back to what we were talking about at the beginning, it just shows you that it doesn't matter what camera you're using, even from old slow focusing autofocus for screwdriver rather than hypersonic, minimal stabilization in the early days or no stabilization at all, film cameras, whatever, all those shots are still possible. We've got it very easy today, and yes, they do help us get the better shots, but you still need to learn the technical side of things. So basically, as a photographer, you need to practice. You need to, I think, switch between genres of photography. So try portraiture, try wildlife, try macro, try all of it, try landscapes, just experiment. Make mistakes on purpose. Teach yourself how to actually become a better photographer. Just look at everything else in life. Look at athletes, look at rally drivers, look at anybody who does something that needs training. You can't pick up a camera and just be the best photographer in the world like that. It takes time, and I'm far from the best photographer in the world, absolutely by far. I'm nowhere near, but I love what I do, and I make the time to actually pick up the camera and experiment. And I make mistakes. Yes, I do make mistakes. I sometimes rely on the camera to get it in focus where it didn't quite, and make little mistakes here or there, set the wrong settings. I'm only human. But when you do know what you're doing, and you learn from the mistakes that you make, you become better and better, and that's what it is about. Don't rely on other people trying to sort of head you in the right direction. Yes, advice is good, but only when it's the right advice. Don't rely on people to tell you which setting to have here or there. Try it yourself. Experiment. Back in the film days, we used to go out in the dark and try light painting and things like that. But we had film. We had no idea if it was going to work or not until we got the process, the film back from processing, and went, well, that's rubbish. That's rubbish. But then you just learn from that moment, and that's the most important thing to do. Pick up the camera as much as you can, even if it's for 5 minutes a day. Just take pictures in the garden, take pictures inside the house, mess around with lighting, move lighting around to create shadows in interesting places. Learn from your mistakes, and that way you'll become a better photographer. So guys, I'm sure I probably missed a few things there, but I'm hoping it kind of made a few things obvious. Especially if you are learning, you don't necessarily need the best camera out there to take better photos. Using an old film camera, an early digital camera, it still takes photos. It still takes very good photos. It's all about how you use it, how you learn, and making the most of what you've got. So I would say the best thing to do is get yourself out there, keep using the camera. Look at this. Someone who is a professional, I don't know, athlete or something like that, they spend thousands of hours practicing to get their skill at the best they can possibly do, and that's the only way of becoming a good photographer. You can read as many books as you like, you can watch as many videos as you like, until you actually do it and remember and learn from those experiences. That is when you're going to be progressing as a photographer. There's nothing wrong with listening and learning from others. It's brilliant, but you've got to do it yourself. And practice, and that old saying, makes perfect. Unfortunately, perfect doesn't exist, but you can get pretty close. Anyway guys, so please subscribe, please click the notification bell, please share this, and also write some comments below, because I'd like to hear about everything. So cheers.